And welcome back to Lycan Studios. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic day. So, as you guys know, we're covering the plot leaks. These are pretty old, and of course it is fan fiction, but still kind of fun to talk about. Anyways, let's jump into episode 2. We're going to be debunking all of these episodes in a future video. So, it starts off in Winterfell for episode 2. It says Davos, Gendry, and the remaining forces arrive at Winterfell's main gate. They agreed to stay behind with the ships in order to unload the rest of the dragonglass that was mined on Dragonstone. They have several big wagons full of dragonglass. Most of the wagons are full of black obsidian, but there are also a few filled with green and red dragonglass. I'm not too sure what that means, but that's pretty cool. Arya, Brienne, and Podrick are outside training in the yard until they hear all of the commotion at the gate. They see all of the wagons of dragonglass being brought into the center of the courtyard. As they are watching this, Arya and Gendry spot each other from across the yard. Arya can't believe who she is seeing. Arya and Gendry meet halfway and they embrace for several moments. They both seem to be at a loss for words. They didn't expect to see each other again. In fact, Arya says that she thought Gendry was dead. She says she didn't trust the Red Witch that took him. Gendry looks at Davos and says, "I would be dead if it wasn't for him." Gendry says he knows why the Gold Cloaks wanted him so badly. He is King Robert's bastard son. Davos says that's exactly why Gendry is here. He was born to carry a hammer just like his father. Gendry will be working in your forges now, preparing weapons for the wars to come. Arya seems pleased by this. Arya says she used to recite Melisandre's name every night before she went to sleep. Arya says, "If I ever see Melisandre again," but Davos cuts her off. He says, "I'll kill her." So then we switch over to Volantis. In Volantis, there is a large group gathered outside of the Red Temple of R'hllor. Melisandre, Kinvara, and several others are standing at the top of the steps overlooking the crowd. Melisandre begins to say there is a darkness falling over Westeros and soon it could cover us all. R'hllor has placed me here for one purpose and one purpose only, and that's to end this darkness. Melisandre says, "I have already brought ice and fire together. I have met the prince who was promised, and he will be the one who leads the fight against the Great Other. I have seen it in the flames. Every time I look, all I see is snow." The crowd begins to erupt. Some people start chanting Daenerys Targaryen, the Dragon Queen. Kinvara steps forward to silence the crowd. She says, "Prince or princess, it doesn't matter now. Melisandre is right. The Great Other is here. Ice and fire have been made as one and they will fight together, but we all have a part to play in the Great War. They cannot fight this fight alone. We must go to Westeros and help them, all of us." So then we go back to Castle Black. It says the aftermath at Castle Black will be shown. All of the whites that came were burnt. Castle Black is in ruins. Everything had to be burned in order to stop the attack of the whites. Lord Commander Ed was killed during the attack along with 95% of the remaining men that were still guarding the wall here. Beric Dondarrion burns the bodies with his sword. He tells the few remaining men he must go south. He promised someone he would see them again. Until he fulfills his promise, he must continue. Back at Winterfell in the Godswood, Bran Stark is alone at the weirwood tree. His hands are gripping the chair and his eyes are fluttering. Then it will show a series of visions that Bran is having. He sees Jaime Lannister taking off his helmet the first time he arrived at Winterfell. He sees his father's statue in the crypts of Winterfell. He sees and hears the Mad King saying, "Burn them all." Pots of wildfire are in a cellar. Blue dragon fire is burning a castle. Someone is in a bed of blood and there is the sound of a baby crying. Bran falls from the tower. Bran can see smoke rising from Winterfell. He sees Melisandre looking into the flames. He sees a black silhouette of someone holding a sword that is on fire. Bran is falling from the tower window. Then he is face to face with the Night King and he immediately comes out of his vision struggling to breathe. When Bran looks up, he is surrounded by Jon, Dany, Tyrion, Sansa, Arya, Davos, Varys, Brienne, and his maester. Jon asks Bran what happened. What did he see? Bran says everything. I can see everything. At first it was all fragments and I struggled to distinguish what was past or present, but now I know. Bran says Castle Black is gone along with its men. The last hearth is gone along with the Umbers. He says the Night King has seen him. He knows they are here and he is coming. Jon tells everyone to meet him in the main hall. As Jon begins to walk away, Bran grabs him by the arm and Bran says, "We need to speak soon. It's time for you to know the truth." Everyone of importance is gathered in the main hall at Winterfell. Jon informs everyone of the recent attacks in the north by the Night King. He says that the Great War will begin soon and they must be prepared. Jon says he doesn't know if Cersei will be sending her support or not, but they will need extra reinforcements. All of the dragonglass needs to be fashioned into weapons. That way, every man, woman, and child can arm themselves. Jon says that Winterfell should not fall, but if it does, there are secret passages they can use to flee the north, but he hopes it doesn't come to that. Daenerys still has 2 dragons and fire kills whites. He also says his sword is made of Valyrian steel, so he can take out as many White Walkers as he can. Brienne and Arya both stand up at the same time. They too have Valyrian steel, and they still stand by Jon and help him. Samwell Tarly stands up in the back of the hall. He tells Jon he also has a Valyrian steel sword. He says he took his father's sword before he left Horn Hill. He also says he has been reading some of the books he took from the Citadel, and he may have found some things that may be of interest. Tyrion shifts his seat and says, "I would like to see some of these books as well." As everyone starts to leave the hall, Daenerys tells Jon she would like to have a word with him alone. Sansa looks at Daenerys suspiciously, as does Tyrion. They both walk atop the castle, overlooking the battlements. Daenerys wants to know if Jon plans on telling everyone about their relationship. Jon doesn't think it's a good idea right now, considering tensions were already high when they arrived in the first place. With the Night King being so close, we should wait to tell everyone later. The last thing I need is everyone walking out of here now. We can't afford to lose anyone. Cersei may never send help, and we already lost the Night Watch and the Umbers. As Jon begins to walk away, Dany says, "Wait, there is one more thing. I saw your maester last night because I wasn't feeling too well. Jon, I'm pregnant." I don't think that's how that's going to go down, but anyways, now we switch over to the twins. Jaime and Bronn arrive at the twins. The property looks nearly abandoned at the time. Jaime says that someone infiltrated their castle and poisoned almost everyone here, but surely someone is still ruling the twins. No one is guarding the bridge. Jaime says if only the young wolf found their bridge this way, he would be alive and my family most likely dead. When Jaime and Bronn reach the door, they are greeted by several women that are now ruling the twins. Jaime says that they are heading north and he needs to gather any men or soldiers that he can. There is a storm coming down from the wall and everyone will die unless they come with him. One of the girls says that Queen Cersei didn't send word about this. He says no, she sent me instead. Back at King's Landing, Cersei, Qyburn, and the Mountain are walking around the walls of King's Landing. Qyburn has men bringing up the stashes of wildfire to place at each gate that enters the city. No one will enter through the gate without being burned alive. Men are also seen setting up the ballistas. Qyburn has had several more made, and now they are being strategically placed around the Red Keep, and they are all aiming at the sky. King's Landing will not fall easily. Qyburn tells Cersei that Euron has picked up the Golden Company and they should be arriving in King's Landing any day now. Cersei is pleased. She says they may have a larger army right now, but she will never step foot inside the city alive, talking about Dany. Even if they lose, we have seen what fire does to the dead. With the amount of wildfire that we have, I'm not concerned with an attack from anyone right now. Now that I have the Iron Bank's full support, I may have one more surprise for our foreign blank. The next scene is at night at the Iron Islands. Theon and a small team land their boat on the shore and begin to make their way up. They plan on entering the castle and freeing his sister Yara. To their surprise, no one was left to guard the place. It is completely abandoned. Euron has taken every able body with him and killed the rest who cannot fight or row. Yara is not there. Theon's worst fear has come true. Yara is still on the Silence and he will have to board that wicked ship to free her. On the Silence, Yara is down below and she's covered in blood with most of her hair cut off. She's tied up but she's not gagged. Euron enters and begins laughing maniacally at her. He begins to taunt her by telling her she will die on this ship. He says Theon will never have the balls to attempt to get her back, and even if he does, he will hang them both on the front of the ship. Then he leans down and says, "Tell me, Yara, who is your king?" Yara doesn't say a word and for a few moments is silent, until Euron begins laughing again and he hits Yara with her own tongue. Yara begins to cry. That's crazy. Back in Winterfell, Sam, Bran, Tyrion, and the Maester are looking over everything he took from the Citadel. Sam says that he has books and scrolls about the Long Night, the Others, the Children of the Forest, and much more, but he can't make sense of it all. Tyrion picks up the book that was already open about the Long Night. He starts reading it out loud. It's about Azor Ahai and a sword called the Lightbringer. Tyrion is intrigued. He says it reminds him of something Melisandre once said while she was at Dragonstone. She said that the prince that was promised would bring the dawn, yet Missandei believes that it could mean princess. Bran says it sounds similar to the stories old Nan used to tell him about the last hero, the man who would lead the fight against the dead. The Maester says, "Where do you suppose we will find such a man with a magical sword?" Sam and Tyrion both look at Bran. Bran says, "Take me to the weirwood tree." Next, we move on to Carhold. A massive storm begins to roll in from the north. Everyone in the area begins to go indoors. Alice Karstark is inside with a few men reading over some messages delivered by the Ravens today. She says word has come from Winterfell. The Night's Watch no longer stands and the last hearth was destroyed. The wall no longer protects us from what lies beyond. The king in the north wants to prepare for the worst. He is arming everyone at Winterfell and I've already sent men to get some of the dragon glass that he says can be used against him. Before she can finish telling her men about the news from Winterfell, a sudden scream and the sound of a horn begins to echo throughout the castle. Alice runs over to the window and looks outside. It's a complete whiteout from the storm. She can't see anything past their wall. Then an ear-shattering scream comes from the clouds. The Night King and Viserion break through the storm and a blue flame is seen lighting up the night sky. And that is how episode 2 comes to an end.